Hello and welcome to Imp's Adventures podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Help the network out by leaving us a 5-star review, give a donation directly through Red Circle, and become one of the amazing community by joining the Social Suplex Discord. Link is in the description. Order merch from all our shows over at chopped-tees.com. Thank you to Dickie. Please do check out the Social Suplex newsletter. Shout out to Trish and Tim as always, and every single person who's contributed so far. Listen to the other top-notch shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style, All Things Elite, Wrestling Art with Chris Things, Trish and Sarah, Tunnel Talk, and Sam Brown's AEW Match Guide. My name is Matt Maher, aka Imp, and this is your quick look back at the WWE week that was. 30 minutes? Question mark? That seems implausible. It feels like the normal format's going to have to die this week. And oh boy, plenty of morality questions of, do I even completely just change the format of this show? Instead of it being, I watch WWE so you guys don't have to. How about none of us watch WWE? And I just cover AEW? What binds have I put myself in? Why did I do this? Why did I do this? Why did I nominate myself as this guy? And I'll give before I get into my talking about it, I'll give a shout out to Trish and Sarah. It's actually quite remarkable how topically on point their podcast is, given that they recorded it before SummerSlam Night 2 had aired. So that already a lot of the notes and topics that you're going to be talking about coming out of SummerSlam Night 2 were already there. And Trish and Sarah's podcast has helped me really realise that there were already a lot of these talking points able to be discussed just after Night 1. Then Night 2 happens, and I have, just in terms of the people that I know and I interact with, I've never seen as many people who cover wrestling in some form or some manner. I've never seen as many people in that field talk about either quitting or changing up what they're doing or whatever, or just have that moral question. Steve from Stephen Larson, he was asking questions on his personal channel. Watching him talk about it as well as somebody who's been doing this for a really long time, just seeing him talk about how he sees it, how he covers wrestling rather than watching it. And it just kind of resonated with me because in my head I'm like, oh, but is that the excuses I use type of thing? Where I've said before, I said back in, 2019, I think, the last time I properly had this quandary. If I wasn't covering WWE for a website or something like that, I would have stopped watching. Because in 2018, I did. I dove fully into New Japan, and in that period there between 16 and 19, when WWE was at its creative plummet, I was fully into New Japan. So when they did shit like Bobby Lashley's sisters, I just stopped watching for the summer. And that's when New Japan Pro Wrestling really heats up with its G1 Climax tournament with Dominion as well. So it was very easy to stop watching. And I bring that up because we're at a similar kind of feeling here. One of the phrases I've seen going around is it's never been easier to stop watching WWE. I felt that back in their 2018-19. This feels like a whole other level. AEW is absolutely killing it creative at the moment. It is very easy to get into the AEW product right now. But even if you didn't watch All In, it's very easy to get in because they're in that rebuilding phase. They're still delivering great wrestling, but obviously it's not at that emotional zenith. So it's quite an easy jump on point because they are doing that kind of little character slow builds and things to get you invested in stuff. This is what we talk about where, how on earth am I going to cover this in an hour? Never mind 30 minutes. So not only have I got SummerSlam Night 1 and Night 2, not only have I got my quick notes from the Night Raw, obviously I'm going to be talking about Brock Lesnar. Also on top of that is the ESPN deal. And I've chosen to talk about the ESPN deal first because it fits with me into the theme of this episode of, I'm probably going to title it something like, it's never been easier to stop watching WWE. Because I feel like that is a theme of this show. Not to just sound like I'm going to repeat what Trish and Sarah said. I found Night 1 incredibly boring. I found their tag matches to be of the exact same build and rhythm. And so many of those matches on Night 1 did the same slow pattern of slow heat. And then you get to the main event, which it was actually quite nice listening to Trish and Sarah call it shit. After I too went online and was just like, oh, maybe it just wasn't for me. Like, oh, good. Good. Because there is another WWE pattern of their main events being heel dominates for ages, then the good guy gets his fight back and wins in some manner. We like this, the John Cena patented way of booking those matches. The heel gets all of the thing and then he hits his 5 moves of doom and wins. That's why they're called 5 moves of doom. When he hits them, he's going to start winning. But even though obviously he didn't go into Punk doing that, it still had that exact same formula. Maybe it's playing it into that tired old man can't do the stick at the pace he used to or anywhere near close. So he ends up just doing a John Cena match. Just the heel gets all of the offense in. He just takes it, gets knackered, and then kind of hits his GTS for the win. But anyway, yeah, Night 1, I'm pretty low down on it. Night 2, I was starting to have a good time. I very highly rate the actual match of Cody Rhodes, John Cena. Then none of it matters. Nobody is talking about Cody being champion. The conversation isn't about what do you think about Cody. The conversation is what do you think about Brock. The conversation is, are you going to keep watching? The conversation isn't, oh, I'm excited to tune in, but it's sticking with the theme of it's never been easier to stop watching WWE. Oh boy, am I glad I left this recording when I could. Because normally when I know the recording's going to be this long, and it was already going to be long, I was like, I need to record like a day earlier if possible. That didn't really turn out. Luckily, because I was busy, I get to today, and there's more news coming out like, to do with these deals. So in terms of like, there's already the moral quandary, the whole Brock Lesnar thing, but where you fall on it. No matter how you've answered it, you still had to answer the question. The fact the question's even there is ridiculous and should never be there. I'm not surprised. It's what I expected. I mean, the bar was so incredibly low on my opinion of WWE as a company. I fully expected them to do what they did this weekend. But on top of all that, then you get to the actual monetary side. You get to the how much does it actually cost to watch WWE? Those tickets for SummerSlam were incredibly expensive. People paying $500 for a seat for a show on night one where they just kind of sat on their hands. And it hits even harder because of the recency of All In. Now we've finally had that big show from AEW in America. There's finally what feels like a direct comparison, especially with SummerSlam and All In, just because they're the summer shows as well. And it's not even close. Like it's like the night one was just boring. But on top of all that, top of the cost of all that, obviously it's split up amongst different places you have to watch it, where SmackDown's on cable and it's not uploaded onto the streaming services until well later. You have to pay for Netflix to get to see it on Netflix. And now you have to have your ESPN subscription to watch the premium live events. Because ESPN announcing their DTC direct to customer with the streaming service starting on the 21st of August. It's fair to say $30 a month is quite a price point if you're just joining it for the wrestling, especially on top of your cable for SmackDown, your Netflix for Raw. YouTube TV is not currently on the list of places with ESPN that will be getting the PLEs, so worth checking that nearer the date if that's your planned method. Not all places with ESPN will carry every show, but it is worth checking what your thing is. Apparently, if through your subscriptions you do get ESPN, like through your TV subscription or through something like some form of deal type thing, then you will be getting the PLEs. That was confirmed by Sean Ross Sapp. The fact it's this complicated as well, it's just like, it's very question. Especially for me, as a European dude, where I just get to, I've never called myself a European dude before, I don't know how I feel about that, but I get to watch everything for the price of one Netflix subscription. Compare that to the close to $100 it's going to cost for the average American who's not got, unless you have ESPN like through a different thing, like the cost of a Netflix, the cost of the Peacock, where I know you can get Peacock you can get the ad-free tier as well, you can get it given to you in different ways, but the fact you need 3 different things to be able to keep up with WWE, to me that's just a bit mental. It's just a little bit crazy. Like sure, it's easy to navigate with a VPN, but surely you're going to end up pricing out some fans with this. Yes, you get the backlash of people not liking change. We're going from the network to the Peacock era to suddenly now to watch the pay-per-views you do need to have the ESPN paid thing. But there's going to be a number of people who won't be doing any of that, who are just like, oh, suddenly I need to find 30 more quid every single month to be able to keep up with this. If you're at a marketplace, you're giving out free fish, you're like, oh god, I'm sending so much fish, and then suddenly you put them on a $30 entry fee to get the fish. It's like, oh, why aren't I sending you much fish anymore? It's not how the market works. You're not going to suddenly get all of these people coming over and paying that extra money for it. But that is on top of the weekend they brought back Brock Lesnar. So not only is this tied in with the ESPN deal being announced, but on top of that, on the week they brought back Brock Lesnar, we've also seen media talking about the deal with ESPN, and because it's ESPN's under Disney, but about WWE getting so much money from Disney. So it's not like WWE haven't been in front of media. Paul Levesque was on ESPN hyping up this deal. And for me, I read the Brock Lesnar thing as, I'm highly assuming it was done to try and boost ticket sales, which is going to make Trish and Sarah seem prophetic. Because I'd written these notes like days ago, just talking about that constant need to like bring back the old guys to try and boost these sales because they're not generating any new stars, which is apparent when you watch the shows and you've seen those non-reactions. They're going to have to keep bringing back these big names to try and give that boost because, well, the tickets are so incredibly expensive to keep that level of line must go up the entire time. They're going to have to bring in these big names to give that shock moments to try and give that short-term boost constantly. You know, they're not filling the tank with petrol. They're just like, go in. And every single time it's like, oh god, we might need to refuel. Like, no, put in the cheap super fuel, which the battery will have to stop and be recharged or something. Like, it's crazy. Because after this, I generally question what's next. If they're doing this to boost ticket sales, and they've done the John Cena tour, they've done the big Cody story with the ending that with the Roman Reigns thing, with all the legends coming back, you've done the stuff with The Rock. Then you go for the big shock moment of bringing back Brock Lesnar, which we'll go into more detail in a second. Like, what is there left after this? What is the next thing to do? They're leaning more to that UFC thing, and UFC, they've not done anything like bring the ticket sales down or anything. Like, the ticket prices are going to stay as high as they are, because I guess at the moment they feel like they can get away with it. And my prediction was like by the end of the year we might see the boat start to rock a little bit, just because the product hasn't been that good for quite a while now. Even though it wasn't like like massively into the product myself, I could see why people would get into it. I guess that like kind of died shortly after Elimination Chamber, and then I really felt it once that WrestleMania main event happened, and it's just been a rocky boat ever since. That's not the kind of thing you see reflected in those ticket sales or anything for quite some time. Again, echo AEW and how it went from like October to I think to All In, really, when like the product was just great from all of that point, but they didn't get the recognition until like July. Off this weekend, not only was there the Trump stuff as well, which is another question about why am I engaging with this company that is so outwardly being pro-Trump in an audience that booed the video, which means there's an audience of people who paid their tickets to watch it, and then they're live found out that they were a company who are actively promoting Trump as well. Never been easier to quit WWE. It's also quite expensive to follow, unless you know certain places to watch wrestling, certain ways to get a VPN to be from a different country or whatever like that. It's never been easier to stop. The price is going up. Oh, that's the other part. Peacock is also increasing the prices of their subscriptions. What an amazing time. To the total that I'll give a shout out to Cotton. Actually give me the price, because I am an English man. I do not know the American ways. I don't know American subscription prices. But Peacock are upping the price of theirs as well. So even what was figured out and told to me yesterday is now incorrect, because Peacock are upping their prices. So it's even more expensive. But that's not even talking about the morality shit. And beforehand, for me, it was clear that they were being pro-Trump. And I feel like I'm going to say for me, I feel like that's because it was clear, but it was never integrated into the show, or there was never like propaganda of Trump promoted on the show. This weekend that changed. You can no longer talk about WWE without talking about their politics, because WWE didn't put on a show without mentioning their politics. So why would I talk about it without mentioning it when they didn't? It is integrated into the show. It is actively on it. So at this point, it's undeniable what they are promoting, which is just another question to ask yourself. And all of this is happening with that morality stigma of simply watching WWE that's still in the air because of how SummerSlam Night 2 ended. Never been easier to stop watching or to try out the competition. Which finally leads me on to Brock Lesnar. What a moment Levesque proudly told the post-show panel after they brought back the man named over 40 times in the Vince McMahon sex trafficking lawsuit. On the ESPN deal announcement, Levesque said, well, he's been gone for a while, and yeah, why had he been gone again? Why had he been gone again? It's disgusting, horrendous, and the biggest insult I can give is that it was entirely expected. Like, I fully expect the company to be this low. I fully expect them to bring back Vince in some form. Like, they never cared. Vince only left because Slim Jim threatened to pull their sponsorship for the Rumble. In this, WWE hasn't waited for Brock's name to be cleared or for a trial or anything to reach a decision. Instead, as soon as the company's lawyers told them what they wanted to hear, bang, he's immediately shot back into the show. And if the Trump thing didn't front and centre tell you what this company are, bringing Brock Lesnar absolutely cements it. It's a straight up middle finger to any victims, to anybody who's been a victim of SA or anything. Just brought back that man, and with absolutely no repercussions, which is what the sentiment of Janelle Grant's lawyer's statement was when they were questioned about this. There has been no repercussions to Brock Lesnar. And I'm kind of fully aware that I'd even call it like an internet bubble talking about it, isn't going to have any effect. It doesn't make it less disgusting that they did it. It doesn't make it any less cowardly that they cancelled the press conference stuff so they wouldn't face any of these questions about it. With over the weekend people questioning, oh, why have they cancelled the press stuff? Then you watch the Saturday show, you go, oh, it's probably so they don't get questioned about the Trump stuff. Then you watch the Sunday show and you go, oh, okay. Like, okay, now I get it. Now I get why they didn't. Paul Heyman's out here comparing Brock Lesnar to presidents who didn't have a 100% approval rating. If you've not seen this Paul Heyman interview, there's so much on here. Surely that's not what we're doing here. When Brock Lesnar's music hit, I felt a pit in my stomach and I said, fuck off, in an empty room to nobody. It's never been easier to stop watching WWE. There's also my own question, like, I cover it. Like, sure, I do it while saying, I watch it so you don't have to. But is that just me using that as an excuse? By continuing to cover them, do I still count as one of the, yet you tune into Raw, that statements that WWE minds tout whenever there's any legitimate critique or controversy? And if I'm talking like this, what are other wrestling fans thinking? I've got this barrier kind of in front of me where I've convinced myself that the reason to keep watching is because I'm covering it, so more people can not watch it. But then is that just an excuse? If I fully stop covering it, then you don't find out about the little good nuggets and things which I might recommend over time in terms of like performances and what the wrestlers are actually doing. But that's kind of what I mean by this, is that level of bad. It's so bad, I don't want to promote them in any way whatsoever, and I am in such two minds about doing this show. I'm at this point, I've committed, I'm doing it, but this is the kind of shit that just makes you question, like, what am I partaking in here? I'm still critiquing them, I'm still calling them out on it, but I am also still covering their shows, and I'm going to talk positively about some wrestling stuff that happened. Like, I'm going to do it because it's the format of the show, but it's a level of morality profanity, which is so undeniably damning that knowing about it means that you can't just simply move on. You have to answer the question. And sure, there's other people who have answered that question with a big, oh, you're just overplaying it, or it's just woke. Like, surely we're not categorising sex trafficking as a woke thing. It's not a political divide. Sex trafficking is not a political issue. Like, get over yourselves. And with the whole Trump stuff as well, with the video on night one loudly booed, Vince didn't mention Trump at all, like once he started running for his campaign. I assume fully aware of the wide diverse net of customers WWE has to try and appeal to. But not in this age. We do have people online calling others woke for being angry at the company for sex trafficking. Like, surely you're not putting sex trafficking down that political divide. Surely that's not what you're doing. And Paul Heyman, again, comparing Brock Lesnar to presidents, didn't have that 100% approval rating. Surely that's not what we're doing. And I guess I still think the most damning thing I can say is you went under the bar that I expected you to go under. This is exactly what I expected of you. You can be better, or at least try and appear to be better. But if you're going down that UFC road, just to confirm that they are fully a part of the TKO group and they're going to start operating a bit more like UFC, being way more open with their politics and seemingly not giving a shit about some of the people being just abusers. But in WWE, there are entertainers and they'll tout themselves as entertainers. I don't want to see an entertainer who's part of a sex trafficking lawsuit. And I fully know it's going to have, someone like me sort of talking like this, is going to have absolutely zero effect whatsoever. People are still going to tune into those shows. Brock Lesnar is going to sell tickets. It's going to do exactly what they want him to do. Folk being angry at this, I don't think is going to have any effect. I guess maybe the only effect is I know I'll have to change how I do these shows if I do start covering AEW instead. If I just completely drop this, just become another AEW guy. Be like, nah, I've had it, doesn't matter. I can't do the whole, in case you don't want to, you'll have to be a bit more jovial. Anyway, shall we go through SummerSlam? Shall I use the show itself to try and switch to the more cheery tone that you may be a bit more used to? I feel like I'm allowed to get angry here. I feel like I'm allowed to. Both despicable and cowardly. After putting on a shit show where you promoted the Trump and the government, you became a propaganda show for the for the Trump regime, and you put on a shit show, and then you brought back somebody who's still named on an ongoing sex trafficking lawsuit, and you tried to sweep it on the road like it's not a big deal afterwards when you're touting your big ESPN deal. Like it's just never been easier to stop watching WWE. And on that, let's go through the show in detail, gang. What a switch. What a switch. So live on Netflix for me, I don't know what it is for America, from East Rutherford, New Jersey. That's not what Big Jenny Man said. It was from New Jersey, New York, and I'm not going to steal Sarah's bit from Trish and Sarah, but yes. New York, New Jersey, is it? You're still using that old thing from WrestleMania is that 29? WrestleMania 29? When they didn't want to admit the show was in New Jersey, so they said it was from New York. I feel like that's a part of a WWEism to call it New Jersey, New York. Just it's like, we're by New York. They even said on this show that we're not far away from Manhattan. Just trying to hype back the fun in New Jersey still. Just such a weird thing to be a hangover still in part of the WWE lore. And they're not even doing it for comedic effect. It's not even a bit. Army planes flew overhead as the New Jersey summer folk gathered in New Jersey's NFL team's stadium. I don't know what the NFL team is. And I also have no idea what a Drewski is. Like, you're telling me it's not a Canadian McIntyre. I knew what a Cardi B is, though. I know Cardi B. No wonder the show is so long if even the celebs got full entrances and mic time as Cardi B read off her prompter. Like, hey, who here likes Randy Orton? Hey, who here likes Logan Paul? You didn't need a prompter for that. It's just, surely that was ad-libbed with the randoms she'd met backstage. First bell match time? 20 minutes. We had 20 minutes of just fluff as we started this. Cole told me for night one there were over 53,000 people in attendance, so it must be true. And of course they combined them together, talk on night two, talk about it being the biggest SummerSlam ever. But yes, if you ran the stadium show twice back to back, it automatically becomes the biggest SummerSlam ever. And I guess now I talk about wrestling. It feels weird. It feels weird to talk about wrestling. I mean, I've got all of these notes that I wrote during the matches, but I said at the start it doesn't matter. Part of me's thinking about winging it. Just even like, do you even want me to go through these matches? For the main event, you know what, let's play a clip. Let's play the clip. Let's jump on into the World Heavyweight Championship, Gunther versus CM Punk with Seth Rollins cash in. That was the main event of night one. Let's jump into that. Let's play a clip and then I'll use the clip time to decide how in detail I'm going to cover these. So the expected thing happened. Yay! Congratulations, you worked the workers in the back. Yay! Congratulations! The fans weren't really cheering for Punk. The actual flow of the match itself didn't really warrant you cheering for Punk at the end. But if they were also just expecting Seth Rollins to come out and they were just waiting for the cash in, I guess that technically fits into their own normal rhythm of you just waiting for the interferences. You're not really paying attention to the match. It's how they kind of condition their fans. It's why I applaud the actual Night 2, the actual SummerSlam main event. Why I applaud that Night 2 match between John Cena and Cody Rhodes, which isn't going to get talked about, and nor should it because of the thing overshadowed. I know Cody Rhodes will want to really start to shift the focus onto him. They can use TV time to do that and to really start propelling forward with this new era with him as champion again. But I feel like it's a disservice to the absolutely massive negative that is the Lesnar thing that should overshadow the much better Night 2. Doesn't matter. Lesnar came back. Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. What happened on the show doesn't matter. WWE production did their best to make the generic ass 3-week build try and feel stadium main event worthy. I was listening to a different podcast where they were saying that as CM Punk was coming out, it felt like this big deal. And I'm just watching it like, did it though? In WWE's spectacle production, yes. In any form of actual investment of why Punk winning is a big deal, we literally got a 3-week build. And it was the generic, wins a number one contender match. Baddie gets the heel promo win. Goody gets the goody promo win. We go into the show. Like just the most generic rhythm you could predict it. And you're telling me that when Punk came out, this felt like a huge deal. I feel like the production did a good way to definitely inform me that it was indeed the main event. Like I believe that. It did feel like it was worthy of, at least if it was one big long show and you're doing like an actual like Retro Kingdom style card where you got your best matches at the end. This definitely did deserve to be towards the end of the card. But it's not. Out of your big matches, if I'm putting like the 4, I'll call them world titles for the 2 men's and 2 women's, I guess this ranks above Jade Cargill, Tiffany Stratton, but not above the women's triple threat. It was also incredibly boring, incredibly long, lots of Gunter dominance. I talked about it earlier in this show, but it just felt a lot like a WWE standard rhythm, a kind of match I'd seen a million times, and Punk just so unable to really go at the modern day main event level that it's a lot of Gunter just talking and chatting shit as Punk catches his breath. Like, it's just, I found it so slow. And like, even people like whose opinions I respect, like they were actually having quite a good time with this match, or saying like they do it generally, it was quite good. But I was just so bored. I guess an asterisk that I did watch it on UK time live, so I was a sleepy boy, but I was also a sleepy boy that was bored. I wasn't a sleepy boy that was bored on Night 2, which is, I feel like, it's a good comparison. Like plenty of chops and just so much time dedicated to the champion just shipping the Chicago man down. And I loved Wade Barrett on commentary just being like, I'm not going to cover for this. He's on his final fumes. Look how knackered he is. I love that. It really made me laugh. Which was like pretty easy sell for him on commentary, because like all he had to do was look at that very sweaty man in his 40s and be like, oh yeah, he is struggling, isn't he? Like, it's so difficult to hide that why even try? I enjoyed Wade Barrett doing that. I'm assuming no through his ear anyway, but it just made me laugh. Like, eventually you had Gunter flowing into his momentum of his like patented power bombs and the big splash of the top rope, but none of it's working, with Punk still kicking out. I was going to say getting kicked out of the ring, but it's more that he just fell out of the ring before getting launched into the ring post advertisement. Then we've got a kind of clunky announce desk spot where Gunter then falls onto the announce desk, bashes his head, and next thing we know, he's got a bleeding. I treat WWE as kind of like a cartoony world at times, so the fact he's bleeding is kind of what matters, but WWE try and get medical specific, and they try and that comes from the Vince era where you get too specific to the exact muscle. So they don't need to do that. People don't talk like that when they get an injury. Vince, obviously, it makes sense that he didn't know how normal people speak. I mean, you've seen those texts in that lawsuit, like, Jesus Christ, can't send a text without doing proper punctuation with commas and exclamation marks, like everything. And if I spot a mistake, I'm so angry at myself. Just like, oh no, I can't delete it. Anyway, that was a tangent. Gunter into the ring to go, blood. Oh yeah, that was my point. The point was, I treat them as like this cartoony world, but they try and be specific, which is funny, but they're still a cartoony world. So when Gunter goes, blood, that's all that matters, as in cartoon character, big baddies going, there's red on my face. That equals bad. Like, it's that level of thinking. I don't need to know exactly where it's coming from. I don't need to see the fork holes in his face. That's why for me, a blood packet in WWE, I don't get as annoyed at it as other things, because they're a cartoony world anyway. Like, if they did that in AEW, it's like, what are you doing, mate? What are you doing? But in WWE, it's such a cartoony world anyway, I don't care. Like, it's fine. If they blood packet, whatever. I don't need to see them doing proper blood. Their feuds haven't earned it. Like, it's you telling me that this match earned proper Gunter blood. If I'm Gunter, I'm not blading for this. Like, are you serious? I mean, yes, it's a SummerSlam main event in front of a huge crowd. Like that at least adds to it. But, storyline-wise, narrative-wise, character-wise, it's all no. So, no. No, thank you. But back into the ring to go, blood. Up for the GT... No, try again. Up for the GT... Come on, you can... Up for the GTS and such a swish float over into the sleeper. At least Gunter had his energy. No fear, there was a second attempt with a succeeded and third sealed the deal for the GTSs. CM Punk wins. Cole and Barrett stand on their feet to applaud along with the crowd as Punk soaks it all in and turns around to lift the title high on for the camera, burn it down, just to walk out and say, just hold on to that title while you can. Or was he? Dropping the crutches in a very dramatic fashion, turning around to disrobe and charge down to the ring, beat the hell out of Mr. Chicago with the briefcase and cashed on in. Stomp, and Seth stole the title anyway. Punk didn't even make it as champion for 6 minutes. And I was talking about beforehand how I felt like it was more negative to try and get one over the WWE crowds and not do the cash in. I feel like at this point they'd done so much in their build to this that doing the obvious thing was kind of the only good solution. There are other ones where you could prolong it, but we're still expecting the same point. You're just prolonging the character beat, which you might as well just do it. Like in my head, when I was going towards SummerSlam, I was looking at it months ago. I saw somebody just suggest it on Blue Sky. I was like, oh yes, the idea of Gunter, Sammy, Seth. Because they started that story of Sammy possibly trying to believe in himself that he could be a world champion. I mean, it's all that we hear with his match with Karen Cross, where he was talking about, I believe that I can be champion. And that's what his feud was, is to give him that character note where he believes it and then he can do something with him next. The next thing's probably just going to be a person in War Games, but, baby steps. So in my head, because you're doing that story long term and you're going to it at WrestleMania, that means that you can do Sammy winning King of the Ring instead of CM Punk, and then you do the exact same story that they just did here, but with Sammy instead, which is then character-wise makes sense that Seth lets him become champion, because it's not his mission to stop CM Punk. You can do Seth Rollins versus CM Punk earlier in the show. Other Skittles don't get knocked down because you're not doing the injury angle to hide the money in the bank because he's busy elsewhere. You're not doing a CM Punk main event, which means I avoid that boring match. But I think the main boring thing for me is the reason in my head I wanted to do Sammy versus Seth is because then I can build to Sammy versus Seth for WrestleMania, and I was far more interested in that. I saw the CM Punk thing as more of a, you can do the feud over the summer, but that's to give Seth the room to grow as a character, and then you use that for his world title reign, rather than it be the focus of his world title reign. So it feels like what we've been focused on for so long now with CM Punk since he's been in WWE, we're still gonna be stuck on that all the way to WrestleMania, and I'm already talking this way about it. Like, I've seen them brawl enough times now. Like, it's gonna take something, you have to actually sit back, come up with something creative, like actually get that room together and like put your heads together. What can we do to actually make this story like unique and go a different direction, because you've done so many of the beats already? Or continue with this summer and just not really do that. Also, I don't mind the idea of building a new star, which is evident in needing to boost ticket sales. You bring back another old guy, and the well's so dry that it has to be somebody who's in such an actively bad PR position. Anyway, yeah, Seth Rollins is champion. Match was boring. Move on. Roman Reigns and Jey Uso versus Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. I kind of want to clip notes to this because I don't want to. I've dedicated more time to the thing I think is more important, and I feel like going through the beats of the matches isn't particularly like worthy of it. But Roman Reigns and Jey Uso versus Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. Roman wrestling in bright daylight felt weird after a full decade of main event slots, and a very un-Hogan ending of Reigns. He took the Breakker spear bullet, allowing Jey to get the jump and win after the splash. You mean the beefer's gonna get the pin? That don't work for me, brother. Yes, Roman giving his beefer the win. I mean, Jey's a world champion. Let's not besmirch the Uso. The women's tag team championship, Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez versus Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. And this is kind of why I'll perfectly fine to just jump over that opener, because this match followed pretty much the exact same rhythm, just minus the chaos of the final third. This one here had the exact same flow. We got that long, lengthy period of the baddie team stomping on one of the others down, and it was just like, I literally just watched this. We're doing it again. I was like, no threat, Matt. You got another match with basically this rhythm, and the main event's not any better. Flair and Bliss getting their win. The reactions during it stayed pretty dead until Charlotte tagged back in. The closing momentum finally kicked into gear, with Bliss accidentally hitting her stiff forearm on her own tag partner, all building to the final shot of Bliss with the inverted Sister Abigail locked in, and Flair looking amped to hit a boot in the corner over her shoulder onto Raquel Rodriguez. The match didn't do anywhere near enough to build animosity to expect a turn. If anything, the fact it could happen because moment is actually quite the indictment of WWE's writing. It's kind of, you got that in the main event, like fine. Sami Zayn versus Karrion Kross, I talked about it earlier with all the character stuff, and for me that's the important details, because the match was boring. In incredibly boring. Just night one was pretty low. Sammy's prove yourself angle with plenty of downtime for the baddie to chat shit and for commentary to well tread the story. Cross's whole angle has been that Sammy isn't the nice guy, that he's got a dark side, if you want me to. After Zayn lost his cool going all stompy stomp on a rope draped cross, as in wrestling, as with crack, our goody hero turned that shit down and proved the dealer wrong. Not today, drugs. The WWE Women's Championship, Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill. Like Tetsuya Naito 12 years ago. Yes, I'm comparing Jade Cargill to Naito. Let me cook. This weekend broke me. Let me cook. Jade won the big summer tournament, and by the time the championship match came around, the reactions were, well, not quite crickets, but that's because the reactions were piped in over the apathy of kind applause. So I don't actually know what the reaction was. You could hear it in the entrances, like the champion's reaction required no additions. And just like in 2013, once that bell rang, what we got was far better than the build had delivered. Obviously, this is where I very much would like to stop talking about Tokyo Dome quality comparisons, because we quickly dove into those WWE waters with the flows. I did like the ending. The super jaded off the top rope flipped out of looked great, and the prettiest moonsault ever for the win afterwards. Very little fanfare, very little animosity. Everything Stratton did was well executed as usual, but this was the most fine mid-card. And kind of like by my thing to not watch any of the Transphobes matches. Randy Orton and J-Vol versus Drew McIntyre and the Transphobe. Like, yeah, celebrity tag. Oh wait, the Transphobe's in it. Where's the skip button? Fuck, I'm watching live. There is no skip. So I did my British thing and I went and made a cup of tea. That cup of tea would be nice around now. And it was nice. On to night 2. SummerSlam Sunday. So I've talked a lot about how I felt about night 1. Night 2, I'm actually massively positive on. I had a great time with this. Then Lesnar happens, none of it matters. And that's kind of how I'm treating this review. Like, I've made so many notes on all of those matches, but kind of like I did with night 1, I'm just gonna like other notes it and just blast through it. The main event, I wish I could talk about the main event. That's how I'm really gonna treat this. I wish Brock Lesnar hadn't happened, so I was stood here right now to tell you that WWE put on a great main event with John Cena and Cody Rhodes. John Cena literally giving everything he had for this. And you know what, John? None of it matters, because they brought back Brock Lesnar. And I don't mean that in a, oh shock, they brought back Brock Lesnar. I mean that in a, I am legitimately talking about stopping covering WWE, as I've in my head debating, is that just an excuse? Should I just tear the bandage off now? It's that level of your match doesn't matter. And it was a great match. We're talking about where I've got so used to the WWE rhythm. I've been begging for them to change it, where they've just been giving the fans that expectation. They can just wait for the interferences to come, so they're not really popping for the matches. They can pop for the moments during the reactions, or like, it'll be a quick flow. Suddenly you get a "this is awesome" chant, like 5 seconds after they were sat on their hands. They react to the things where I'm not properly sure they're invested. You can really sense it when you watch AEW, and you see what invested fans are actually like at a live event. Then you go to WWE and they're reacting to it, but it's almost in a performative, way the papa kind of thing. Is this the show to be referencing the Master of Disguise? I'm not entirely sure. That's my moral high ground just gone. With Cena, it's hilarious that the heel turn was handled so badly that the show before SummerSlam, he stopped embracing the hate and just called out Rocky and Travis Scott for just abandoning him and the crap creative. Just like, in my head, I'd even, I'll call out one of our listeners, Doc. I even said, because he asked me directly what I think was happening with the John Cena thing, and I've kind of stayed with it the entire time. My full expectation, John Cena all the way to the end of the year. And what I didn't predict was the creative would be so bad, it would be so mishandled that there was no arc. I was like, okay, set this all up, because you're doing all of this to eventually build to John Cena finding himself again, and then he can end the year there. And he can do all that as champion. He doesn't need to drop it to somebody at some point. Or at least when he does drop it, there needs to be an arc building to it. Here, it was the flimsiest excuse, and my massive assumption is the Lesnar deal went through. The Lesnar deal happened. Suddenly, John Cena needs to be a good guy. And they just do it. So, like, in this build for SummerSlam, I'm just like, okay, so this is whatever the arc for John Cena is going to be. SummerSlam is where the trigger for the next phase of it happens. It's my full expectation. Nope, turning to SmackDown, it just happened. They just did it. Oh, okay. So everything from WrestleMania 2 now wasn't character work. It was just wasted time. Cool. And his line of reasoning for doing the switch back to being a good guy was Cody Rhodes challenging him to a street fight. I mean, it's all they had to work on. It basically was just another 3-week build, because there's not really been much since King in the ring for Cody. But like, they were working with what they had, and what they had wasn't much, because they still hadn't really figured out what the character was. Like, okay, cool. So yeah, I said last week that I'd be interested to see the WWE Unreal version of this, and I'm just like, it's just going to be the most blatant WWE propaganda stuff. Like, at least with the WrestleMania 31, there's the interest of peeling back the curtain to see certain things. At least with WrestleMania 31, you can play it off of there were certain plans, especially in the shadow of WrestleMania 40, of which that show very much was, partly why the main event was so disappointing, because it was so in the shadow of WrestleMania 40. Like, you're always looking to build better. Like, yes, it was good last time, but when we put House together, it could be even better. It's kind of how critique works. Like, yeah, it was good, but it could still be better. Nothing is perfect. You can improve upon it. So WrestleMania 41, they didn't even try. It's like, conditioned the audience to expect loads and your biggest run-ins at WrestleMania after a year of getting them conditioned to expect run-ins just on normal Monday Night Raws and pay-per-view matches. You get to WrestleMania and it's just Travis Scott and it just ends. But anyway, this was a great match, mostly because it taking that conditioning of the fans that they're just expecting those run-ins, and it not only not giving them any run-ins, but just having that point in the match where it would kind of die down a bit to switch into a run-in momentum moment. They don't like to die down. They just go to the next bit, which for somebody of John Cena's age is incredibly impressive. I watched the Night One main event. Punk couldn't have done this match. Like, this is what somebody who's older getting into shape actually looks like. The fact that John Cena pulled off this match. Like, if he was rumoured that he whispered to Cody was that I just gave you everything I have. Then I watched it. I fully believe it. Like, that's what it felt like. But I won't go through the beats of the match because Brock Lesnar returns, and quite literally, I haven't written like any of my immediate notes on it. So I was like, it'll be quite cool if I wrote some of my like immediate thoughts like in the moment it's happening. I literally just wrote "fuck off," and I think that covers it well enough. The show started with the Women's World Championship, Naomi versus Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky. Match of the weekend, as I thought it was going to be. Don't even mind the baddie winning with an opportunistic roll-up. I like the idea of the flow of the match being that Io and Rhea wanted that one-on-one match, and then Naomi wanted it to be one-on-one for a different reason, just so she could sneakily win. But I like that it was always Naomi seemingly sending the match into a one-on-one. It was especially that first half, it was always Naomi who was throwing somebody out, whilst the good guys, they got to ignite it into a fun three-person sequence. And note that Ripley's versus Edge still looks fucking devastating. It's just, especially when Io takes it, like, good lord. Also, a big oof as a downed Naomi at ringside had a tattooed Australian powerbombed onto her. More than convincing enough to regard the champion as out for the equation for the next bit, with Io slipping as she went for the head scissors in the corner, transitioned into a big old riptide off Brett's rope for a super convincing finish, only for Naomi to rush in and roll Ripley out of the pin on Io and back onto her shoulders for the three. Really fun match. I would recommend it if it wasn't for Brock Lesnar coming back, and I highly recommend you don't watch anything. Tables, ladders and chairs, the WWE Tag Team Championship. Wyatt 6-6. So if you've not seen the name written down, it is SICK6, so it's 6-6. Versus Street Profits versus Motor City Machine Guns versus DIY versus Faction versus Andrade and Rey Fenix. It was quite, I had a laugh in the Social Suplex chat because as soon as I put in, that's the first match where I was like properly just having a fun time, not thinking, I was just having a fun time. And then Rich immediately jumped in like seconds later being like, how have they put on a 3-star match that I hate? It's like two complete opposite sides to a match. So that social interaction made me laugh. At this time, the tag lads were given a spot on the big stadium show, but with even more lads and chaos than the post-Mania Smackers one. There were so many like really fast sequence of absolute chaos. When AEW get the criticism of, these are just stunt matches. No, this is a stunt match. This is a match with no story, with spots just happening. And I had a great time with it. We've seen that critique from WWE fans about an AEW, I'll say an AEW style Carnage type thing. Suddenly I understand where WWE fans are coming from, because they think that's what those matches are. That's what this was here. Whilst you go to AEW and you see just a sheer level of story involved in it. But yes, it was utter chaos and I had a great time. No countouts, no disqualifications. The Women's Intercontinental Championship, Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria. The crowd did not give a shit about this match. If you didn't know there was like cheering and different boos happening within the crowd, well, that's because there was a Mexican wave going around, and they cheered whenever it didn't make it all the way round and stopped, and did the biggest cheer when it finally got all the way round. There was also a match going on, which went on for a long time, and I don't mind a silly little WWE plunder match. Yes, it is yet another meant to be serious feud, which ends up in silly little zip tie spots, but that is kind of what I've come to expect. Becky Lynch's new theme was great though. What wasn't great, Steel Cage United States Championship, Solo Sikoa versus Jacob Fatu. On the whole, I find WWE's cage matches incredibly boring. Like, in my head, I've got Kyle Fletcher versus Will Ospreay. Then there's Solo Sikoa in a cage match. Yes, Jacob Fatu's there, and Jacob Fatu's incredibly over, and he's going to do a moonsault off the cage, and that's the only reason to do this match. But Solo's not going to catch him by himself in there, so it's not going to happen during the match. And just the person leaving the cage just always makes the winner just seem a bit naff. On Saturday night's main event with Damian Priest, I remember they tried their best to make him look really cool walking out of the cage, but it just doesn't work because you're leaving the fight in that way. Like, they've never managed to pull off escaping the cage as a good win. Teasing the escape of the cage and then ending in a different way, I've seen that work well, but the actual walking out of the cage winning, it's like, and especially again when you got the competition showing you what a cage match can be, and then you watch this cartoony shit. Just not a fan of this. The Intercontinental Championship, Dom Mysterio versus AJ Styles. AJ Styles out in a lowrider and wearing gear in the style of Eddie's from the 2005 Custody of Dom match. Didn't show any videos of the Custody of Dom match. Like, that was 20 years ago. Maybe it's worth just showing a quick thing for what the entire match is based on. At least you got different references in terms of like Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle was also in there for the finish. But there's a lot of that match in here. There's a lot of references to it, and they didn't play any package like in any of the promos building up to this match. There was nothing. It's all just like AJ Styles doing his Hitman stuff, dressed up as various different people, like hiding as the janitor, hiding as a medical staff person. Like, it's all goofy stuff, when the actual match itself was really importantly based off of the Eddie Guerrero versus Dom match, when everything in the actual match itself was based off of Eddie versus Ray for the Custody of Dom. So yes. Anyway, that brings me to the end of the SummerSlam review. Yeah, I could have talked about Cody Rhodes versus John Cena in detail, gone through the match, but none of it matters because all anyone's talking about is how they feel about Brock Lesnar, how they feel about sex trafficking. Like, it's not a good place right now. Thank you for AEW for like existing in a way to just give a place to breathe, to just try and emanate just good vibes within the wrestling world. When WWE's just poisoning the waters with all of this chat that just creates all these arguments and things. It's, in a way, that's kind of why I set up this show. Like, I cover this stuff so you don't have to, and I'm now questioning if that's an excuse. I'm not going to talk about Raw. Sod it. I watched it. I managed to find time today, but I'll talk about it next week if I'm covering it. But yeah, this was the kind of week where even people who cover it are questioning why they do such a thing when the company is this morally broken. So the outro will be different this week. So I'll be doing a social suplex thing regardless. I'll be doing a wrestling thing regardless. Whether it's WWE, I'm going to spend the next week deciding if I do keep it as WWE. Anyway, this is a long recording, which I expect it to be. It's not as long because I've decided to cancel talking about Raw. They don't deserve it. But yeah, it was a big week with the 2 nights of SummerSlam, with them introducing all the Trump and the politics stuff directly into the show. The cancelling of all the press stuff. I didn't really go into that in much detail, but yes, extremely cowardly to dodge all that. Then them being on the public sphere to obviously promote all of the ESPN deals stuff. Not a good week to be a fan of wrestling. If you're just a WWE fan who just watches the shows and doesn't really dive in any further than that, which there will be people, especially with the going on to Netflix. Because I've got people who just watch WWE clips on TikTok. Unless their algorithm realises they might also be interested in the extra news stuff, like, they're not going to see any of this. It'll just be a quick clip of the transphobe doing a dive, but they'll be like, oh, that was cool, wasn't it? And then move on with their lives. Like, they're not going to know any of this stuff. I did get friends asking if Hulk Hogan had died, and I was like, oh yeah, my American friends are lighting up the grill. And they were like, what? Just like, oh yes, context. I need to give context. You're not in any of these bubbles. You're not in American culture bubble. You're not in a wrestling culture bubble. Yes, I need to take a step back. Just realise what I'm saying. Anyway, I'll be back this time next week to talk about, let's just say, wrestling. I mean, to be fair, I'd already started titling the show on Social Suplex as just Imp's Adventures. I didn't do that for any morality kind of reasoning, but suddenly he's like, oh, that's actually worked out. Anyway, with that, I say thank you for liking, engaging in any form, any manner. Always appreciated, never taken for granted. I'll be back this time next week to talk about the wrestling and maybe just have like a good old time. We'll see. Hope you're all doing okay, gang. Hope you all found your way to have your outlet. I knew I had this because I could bottle it all up and I'd be like, oh, I knew I'd be able to just talk about it. Anyway, I'll be back this time next week. With that, I bid you adieu.